Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Caithness Amateur Dram Antiques Society tasting. Tonight I'm going to be looking at some uh, whisky that's been bottled specially for the Eight Doors Distillery in John O'Groats in Caithness. And I'm looking at, I was down in Fort William last weekend, and I did my wife took me along to Ben Nevis Distillery, but it was not open on the Saturday, or they did on their website. The website is actually non-existent at the moment, but they do tours. But for some reason, last Saturday it wasn't open, and I couldn't. There's supposed to be a nice cafe there, and I didn't manage it. But I did go into a whiskey shop, two or three whiskey shops in Fort William, and I picked up some samples of some Eight Doors uh, bottled whiskey. I've got one, the Seven Sons Royal BRACKLA 10-year-old at 46.7%. The Seven Sons small batch release, 8-year-old OLOROSO cask finish at 100 proof, 57.1%, and the small batch release 8-year-old PX cask finish at 100 proof, 57.1%. When we were going down to Fort William, I did. When you go on your sat nav, you don't go through Dingwall, you go over the Cromarty Bridge, and about a mile or two down the road towards Inverness, you turn right. And about 3 miles down that road, which will eventually take you out at Mooravoord, there's a little sign, and it says, a little sign pointing down to the shore on the right hand side of the Cromarty Firth. And it points down towards what it says is Ferrintosh Abbey. And today I've been working on my immortal memory for January next year. I do like to mix a little bit of Burns with my whiskey, and of course, anyone that's a Burns scholar will know that Ferrintosh features in the work of Burns. And Ferrintosh is one of the it's really the first site of the where whiskey making in Scotland got in the Highlands of Scotland became industrialised, and it's quite a legendary whiskey. You won't be able to find any remains of the distillery, I don't think, but it's nice to know where it was located. And also, you won't find any at auction sites on Ferrintosh because it's really passed into legend. It was around probably just before Burns' time. But yeah, it brings you back to the history. And if you have been watching some of my videos, you know I did a story about the history of whiskey making in Caithness when I did a review of a couple of Wolfburns a month or two ago. And I'm going to talk about another distillery that I didn't actually include in that history of lost Caithness distilleries in just a moment. But first of all, a little bit about Eight Doors Distillery. Eight Doors Distillery is in the iconic Caithness village of John O'Groats, and as such, it is now Scotland's most northerly mainland distillery. And owing to our geography, that is unlikely to ever be surpassed. John O'Groats takes its name from Jan de Groot, a Dutchman who is believed to have operated a ferry service to Orkney during the late 15th or early 16th century. He built an octagonal house with 8 doors and an 8-sided table to avoid arguments over precedence between himself and his 7 sons. And that's where the distillery, Eight Doors Distillery, has got its name from. The venture is headed up by the local couple Derek and Kerry Campbell, and the first spirit flowed from Eight Doors pair of stills in September 2022. As I touched upon in that earlier video, distilling in Caithness was widespread for centuries, and what I didn't mention in that video was that John O'Groats was no exception. And on the Eight Doors website, it tells us that amongst the reportedly illicit stills in the county, a legal whisky distillery in John O'Groats was founded by James and George Sutherland in 1826. And it was built at Kirkstyle on the water's edge behind Canisby Kirk. The distillery had its own well, a cereal drying plant, and a malting kiln for the bare barley that would have been used to create the mash. We know that we've had bare barley releases from BRACKLA, and I know that Scapa in Orkney has some bare barley maturing in their warehouse. Beer was the staple of Caithness cropping until the end of the 18th century. In fact, my father, who's a crofter from Dunbeath, another place where there was a distillery in the 19th century in Caithness, remembers his own mother baking beer bannocks by the fire, the peat fire, when he was a boy in the 1930s. So local hand-dug peat would have been used for all the distillery heating requirements. And records from 1837 suggest that the stills and associated copper works were valued at £135, 8 shillings and 11 old pence, as part of the winding up of business at that time. The distillery finally closed in 1838, although the reason is not clear, and all that remains are a few scattered ruins. So if you're visiting perhaps John O'Groats Mill, you could have a wee wander down, see if you can find any of the remains of the distillery at Kirkstyle near Canisby Kirk. The new distillery has a semi-lauter stainless steel mash tun, 5 washbacks, a 1.3 thousand litre wash still, and a 1.7 thousand litre spirit still. They are fitted with shell and tube condensers, and the fermentation time is 96 hours, and the production is 60,000 litres per annum. They've partnered with CASK, a small family-run cooperage in southern Spain, with traditional techniques and true craftsmanship at their heart to provide their first fill sherry seasoned casks. And these are tailor-made to order for the distillery. Air-dried American, European and Spanish oak staves are formed into casks, ready for seasoning for up to 2 years in their partner wineries. And they use a range of cask sizes from 50 litre octane casks, 130 litre quarter casks, and 250 litre hogsheads to 500 litre sherry butts. And they also use a small number of ex-bourbon casks. So, Seven Sons is a range of small batch and single cask bottlings carefully curated by the Eight Doors team whilst they wait for their single malt to mature. And of course, Seven Sons is inspired by the story of John O'Groats and Jan de Groot's 7 Sons. Jan's 7 sons had been arguing about chieftainship and which of them should sit at the head of the table when they gathered together. To avoid a family rift, Jan built an octagonal house with 8 doors, one for each of his 7 sons and himself, and an 8-sided table so that they were all equal. And Eight Doors Distillery was inspired by this story, and for them, whisky is about getting round a table with family and friends and having a great time. They'd like to think that Jan and his 7 sons would have enjoyed a whisky or two together, and they hope that we'll enjoy our 7 sons bucklings with our family and friends. And I know my wife, who's getting into whisky, is enjoying trying the ones that I left her some of the, I wouldn't say dregs, I don't drink too much when I'm doing these tastings. So first up, we have the 7 Sons 10-year-old single malt from Royal BRACKLA, and it's aged for 10 years, bottled at 46.7%, and was matured in a refill bourbon hogshead. The bottles all have on them quite clearly that these are non-chill filtered and naturally coloured. We can see that just here. So that's very, very clear. And of this one, there's only 344 bottles available. So Royal BRACKLA is located in, well, in the Speyside area of Scotland, at least according to the legendary whisky writer, not the thriller singer, Michael Jackson. However, most other whisky writers place BRACKLA. The royal part is optional. There's another story in that. You can see that in my Royal BRACKLA tastings. But most other writers place BRACKLA in the Northern Highlands region. And according to a little review of the literature I did, it seems that most experts agree with that. Royal BRACKLA's new make spirit has a fruity, oily nose with a porcelain coolness, and there's aromas of cucumber. The palate is needle sharp, pineapple, green apple, and unripe fruits. It's very clean and slightly oily, and the finish is grassy. So let's have a look at this first one here. So this is what you get in these little 5cl bottles. Nice packaging. And the bottles are scaled up models. The full bottles are scaled up versions of these, or these are scaled down versions of the full bottles. So nicely packaged. And I've got a little tasting glass, mini Glencairn, with the 8 Doors Distillery and the logo. You can see the 8-sided, the octagon there with the 8 in the middle. The distillery is located at John O'Groats, and I've never done a tour, so I can't really explain too much about the distillery inside the machinations and the workings, but I've been to the cafe several times, and it's a lovely cafe, lovely, brightly lit, beautifully appointed, and does lovely baking. The gluten-free shortbread is just delicious, and the coffee is great. They do tasting flights, and I've seen Derek Campbell sit with visitors, go through the whiskies with the visitors to the distillery. So what have we here? This is a really very pale white wine in colour, and I like that. I remember Glen Grant probably about 40 years ago had a version out, probably I think a 5-year-old, and it was very pale coloured. Of course, 5-year-old Glen Grant is the biggest selling whisky in Italy, owned by Campari, so there's probably no surprise there. But yeah, it's a lovely colour, and it has a nice tide line. This one's 46.7%. And nice tears, so a bit of viscosity there. And on the nose, you do get waxed lemons, honeysuckle, custard creams, white melon, and hay. But I'm also getting a large bucket full of ripe apples, acacia honey, apple juice, brioche dough, buckwheat, and a little vanilla, a little mint, a little sourdough. This is truly malt whiskey au naturel. Well, try them out. This is very good. I get lemon curd, barley sugars, spiced oranges, dry cider, and green apples. It's like those little sugary eggs that you get from Easter, fruit drops, icing sugar, tonic water, Schweppes tonic water. A little white pepper and limoncello. And the finish is medium length, sweet pastry, milk chocolate, and a dusting of cinnamon. I'm going to put some water in this. I'm going to put 10 drops in. That's about half a mil. So pharmacists work on the premise that a drop of water is 0.05 mils. So 10 drops should be about half a mil. If you're putting a teaspoon in, a teaspoon's about 100 drops of water, and is about 5 mils. So yeah, a teaspoon's too much, I think. I'm putting in 10 mils to start with. You can always put it in, but you can't take it back out. So let's see how we go with water in this one. You can see the symmetry there. The water is just starting to soak up the alcohol, the ethanol, and get intermingled there. And now I'm getting lemon barley water, cider, tangerines, quinces, cassata. What's not to enjoy about this? Try them out. I'm getting even more of those little Easter eggs. Fruit liqueurs, oranges, lemons, mandarins, Williams pears. Yeah, I really have to be careful with this. It goes down like Franz Klammer on the Loberhorn. So smooth. And the finish with water is medium. Fresh on sweet barley and orchard fruits and citrus. This whiskey is fresh, joyful, and just very, very good. Malt whiskey au naturel, indeed. And I enjoyed this one when I did a sort of sample tasting last night. So much that this afternoon, with Storm Amy blowing a hoolie outdoors there, I decided to make some whiskey fudge using a couple of teaspoons of this, and that's going to be my palate cleanser this evening. Mm-hmm. So next up, again in a mini Glencairn, showing no favouritism here. This is actually a Blair Athol branded mini Glencairn. We're moving on to the Seven Sons small batch release, 8-year-old OLOROSO CASK finish. Again on the bottom, no chill filtration, natural colour. This one's from a unnamed Highland distillery, and it was finished for 2.5 years in their 8 doors warehouse in their own first fill American oak OLOROSO seasoned quarter cask. And I'll explain in my summing up of these whiskies why I think that's been important here. So 8 years, bottled at 100 proof, 57.1%. And you can see the bubbles there. That's always a sign of a high strength, high ABV whiskey without colouring and chill filtration. And this one, the colour is a sort of reddish coffee. And again, it's maybe a thinner tidal in the last one, but it's still lovely tears coming down the glass there. And the nose, I do get sort of milk chocolate powder, dried apple, honey, oats, light brown sugar and nutmeg. And it's very enjoyable, especially when we veer off towards almost like a Battenberg cake and chocolate mousse and rosehip herbal tea. It's amusing and very pleasant. Vanilla does appear a little later. Try them out. And the 57.1% does not hit in any way hard. It's well balanced, well controlled. I get candied walnut, golden sultanas with flashes of apricot and cinnamon. Blood oranges, bay leaf, cherry stems tea, and a hint of ginger tonic. And the finish is drying, falling on from the walnut. It's gently spiced, flashes of cinnamon and ginger, and it's a medium length. I'm going to try 10 drops of water in this as well. And now I'm now getting the sherry fruitcake. My wife's done some baking today too, and she made a malt loaf. I'm getting buttered malt loaf and stone fruits. And on the mouth, I'm getting peaches, dried apricots, dark berries, and cherries mingling with caramelized nuts, chocolate raisins, toffee poppets, brown sugar, and baking spices. And the finish is similar to what it was without water. It lingers for some time with a slightly bitter aftertaste of Seville oranges. There's wafts of sweet, tangy oak, sugared fruit, and almonds. This is a very good wee Highlander. Is it BRACKLA? They don't tell us. Nevertheless, it's a fabulous 8-year-old single malt from who knows where. Bottled at 57.1%. Finished in OLOROSO sherry quarter casks, which have imparted a fantastically fruity, spiced depth of flavour. I'll have the rest of my cubo tablet. So, third and final of this trio is the Seven Sons small batch release 8-year-old PX cask finish, again at 57.1%. So this one, it's again from an unnamed Highland distillery, finished for 2.5 years in their warehouse, the Outdoors own distillery, in their own first fill American PX season quarter cask. And again, no chill filtration, no natural colour. And the colour is full golden. You can see these bubbles again from the higher ABV. They do say if you shake it, there's a bottle, you'll see the bubbles, and it takes in a cask strength or higher cask strength whiskey, it takes a lot longer for these bubbles in the bottle to dissipate. And I've lost my camera. There we go. We're back on again, I think. Sorry about that. You can tell this is the Amateur Dram Antiques Society. Right, yeah, sorry about that. So, yeah, it's got a sort of nice full gold colour there. and lovely tears in this one. And we would expect with a PX to be quite a bit of sweetness in this. And I'm getting the Demerara sugar, mace, honey, roast coffee beans, cooked figs and muscovado. But somehow it's like I've opened a fresh tin of shoe polish with a teapot of Lapsang Souchong lying nearby. And there's a hefty walnut raisin loaf there as well. You get a picture. Try them out. And you do get that red licorice, star anise, date syrup, citrus peel, stem ginger, and that Angostura bitters. And you get a spiced herbal infusions, salmiak, dark honeys, and even the usual black Tyrone, all bolstered by black pepper and a wee lick of tar. And the finish is sweet and savoury, medium to long, with clove and mace hanging about. It's peppery still, peppermint, black pepper as a signature. We'll try 10 drops of water in this one as well. And now I'm getting Snickers bar toffee and nuts with a sort of rich Shekels cake, raisin, maraschino cherry, and plump sultanas, baking spices and dark fruit cake build up, along with marshmallow fluffy sweetness, grainy biscuits and chocolate. This is Tunnock's tea cakes in a glass. And it's got a soft, rich and chewy texture. It tastes like toffee and feels like toffee. The sweetness from the nose continues, but it's backed up by the darker savoury notes. Singed casks, burnt toast, dark rye bread and molasses. And the finish is rich brown sugar, molasses and treacle toffee lingering. And that's all spotted with flashes of dark spice. This wee Highlander, I'm guessing again, possibly a BRACKLA. It's unnamed, so we don't know for sure. It's far from typical of BRACKLA, but the combination with PX works well. These first fill Pedro Jimenez 130 litre quarter casks, sourced from the preferred cooperage, impart more sherry goodness due to an increased surface contact area between the wood and the spirit than larger second fill hogsheads often used by distilleries themselves. And because they have used first fill sherry seasoned quarter casks for finishing, the sherry has had a beautiful influence on the whisky. I'm using American oak, has ramped up the fruity and vanilla influence and dialed down the spice and tannins we might have anticipated from European oak. The 10-year-old Royal BRACKLA, the first whisky tried in refill bourbon, is my new favourite Somerset whiskey. Sadly, that is going to be around 8 months away. Storm Amy continues to howl at my back door, and I do hope that they batten down the hatches at 8 Doors this evening. But hats off to 8 Doors for producing some great indie bottled single malt Highland whisky. And I'm going to have to do the tour soon to find out what the two 8-year-old sherry finished whiskies, what the mother distillery was. Thank you for listening tonight. Stay safe.